Hello, everyone! Blue Star Saber here once again with Retrospect Greg as we discuss another Star Wars movie. This time,
Yes.
yeah. So I should let to you go first, but yeah.
Um. Yes. I feel like we've done. That was the last thing we did as well. Revenge
Yes.
of the Sith.
Yes, we've been doing quite a lot of Star Wars movies, and I will admit, I wasn't sure about doing this one, but since I enjoy discussing Star Wars with Greg, I figured, why not? But this time, it's not a sequel. It's not a prequel trilogy movie. This time, it's a sequel trilogy movie. or
Yeah.
more, or
It's
more specifically, The Force Awakens 10 years later, which technically was last month, but still.
well. It's been about 10 years and a month now. I'd say.
Yeah, but yeah, it's basically in that since it came out in December. But yeah, Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Granted, there's been a few other things of Star Wars news related that comes up, such as the news about Kathleen Kennedy and Dave Filoni. But I feel like those could be two separate streams to discuss later.
Well,
Not.
I mean, wait and see on that. I got nothing to say about those.
Uh-huh. That's fair. But yeah, who knows? I might do it with you. I might do it with someone else so I can find that. But yeah. Um, But yeah, The Force Awakens, this Episode 7, the sequel movie that no one thought was going to happen at one point.
Well, I don't know. After the prequel trilogy came out, I remember Lucas was kind of like it seemed to be kind of ambivalent on whether or not he was going to do more.
Oh, yes, because, let's see, there's always been talks about a sequel trilogy of films, as George, let's see, since the beginning has talked about this Star Wars saga being either a 9-part film series, a 12-part film series. It really depends on when he was doing it. One of the aspects that many people thought, let's see, depending on when the sequel trilogy was being discussed, it's either going to be like the sequel trilogy would have explored either the grandchildren of Darth Vader, or I think before Return of the Jedi came out, there was a sequel trilogy that was going to be, let's see, Luke trying to find his now, let's see, lost sister, because that wasn't decided as Leia at the time.
Yeah,
And they would eventually go and I think unite to try and defeat Emperor Palpatine. I wasn't sure.
yeah. Apparently, the defeat of Palpatine wasn't going to be until the ninth film or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Vader was supposed to be in those next 3 films at the very least. It could have been that he died in Return of the Jedi, what would then be Return of the Jedi, and that would
Well,
be it.
the thing is, Return of the Jedi wasn't supposed to be. It basically Lucas was starting to figure, I may not be able to make all those other movies, so maybe I should just wrap it up with this one.
Oh yeah, yeah, because I think Han Solo was originally supposed to die, but he didn't want that. But I mean, Harrison Ford says it's because of action figure sales, but yeah, but but yeah, let's see. I think at that point, George Lucas's personal life unfortunately went down the toilet. I think he was removed from the Film Directors Guild because he couldn't get his ideal director in Spielberg for the next film.
Well, he was also kind of going through a divorce at the time. So.
Yeah, that's what I meant with the personal life. So, and also he was going for a divorce. So, arguably, let's see, all his time working on these Star Wars films basically burnt him out at the time, which I suppose you can't necessarily blame the guy, I guess. If that didn't happen, we would have probably had a very different thing. For example, who knows if Han was dead? Maybe Leia would have become Luke's love interest or something instead of sister. But yeah,
Yeah. Well, I don't know what the plan was. I think the plan was Leia was supposed to go back and become like the leader of her people or something.
yeah, Queen of Alderaan, who knows, something like that. But there's all these sort of plans, but nevertheless, Return of the Jedi did, for the most part, wrap it up pretty well as a solid trilogy of, let's see, sci-fi fantasy films, if you will.
Yeah.
The
Well,
only real, the only real criticism you often see is like Ewoks or maybe Luke and Leia, brother and sister, but they kissed in the last film.
yeah. Well, here's the thing: is that like he was apparently another big reason why Lucas decided to wrap it up with the third one or sixth film in this case. Was he was also worried that what if one of the actors dies unexpectedly? That would really throw a wrench into my plans. So
Yeah.
And that kind of happened with the sequel trilogy when Carrie Fisher passed away.
Yeah, though that is more for a later film, unfortunately. But yeah, let's see, she did unfortunately pass away, but not before. Let's see, at least being able to do 2 of the 3 films. But yeah,
yeah. She had already filmed. I think one thing that I think I remember is Rogue One came out like just before she passed away, and it was like, oh wow,
yeah.
Because that had like a CGI Leia at the end of the movie, and everyone. But at the time, Carrie Fisher was actually still alive a few days before. She died like a few days after that movie came out.
Yeah, it was sort of bad timing, but you can't necessarily blame the filmmakers. And I think she probably gave permission for that. I think, but
yeah. But I mean, she had already filmed The Last Jedi, so it was like. It was just the problem was, the 9th film, she was supposed to be the central character for that, but they kind of couldn't do that because she had passed away.
Yeah, and we can get to more of that later, but yeah. So the sequel trilogy was, let's see, for a while off the hook, though. Mark Hamill talked about if there was ever a sequel trilogy, it'd be like an Obi-Wan type mentor. But George, I think, was more focused on doing a prequel trilogy and telling the backstory of Anakin and Obi-Wan and all that. So, and how Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader, and as a result, the saga sort of evolved more like Vader being the central character, given the fact that you see his rise, fall, and redemption.
Yeah, and then the sequels are added, and it's like, what is it now?
Yeah, so that's caused a bit of problems. Do you guys have any Star Wars hot takes?
Well, what's a hot take in this situation?
Okay. Well, in terms of the sequel trilogy era, I kind of like Canto Bight.
Which the Last Jedi sequence?
Yeah.
All right.
At least I like the idea of it.
Yeah, I think it's just people are like, it's kind of weird they're doing this while, they're supposed to be in a hurry.
Yeah, but yeah, it's because to me that feels like one of the only genuine bits of world building the sequel trilogy actually attempted to do.
Yeah, but of course it got forgotten in the next one.
Yeah, but that's basically my hot take, at least for that. But anyway, but yeah, so George did his prequels, but granted, the reaction to those was mixed at the time, to say the least. But apparently there were ideas. I think any Star Wars ship you love. Are you referring to as in spaceship or shipping as in romantic ship? Because Star Wars, you have both of those.
Yeah, I mean Star Wars. I don't know. Star Wars is. Thank God shipping wasn't a thing during the original trilogy.
Let's see, yeah, I was referring to shipping. Well, it probably was. It just the internet wasn't a thing at the time, so the internet managed to avoid the whole Luke and Leia twin siblings thing.
Well, here's the thing. I think, another thing, if the internet had been around, like, say, in Dragon Ball, when they revealed Vegeta and Bulma became a thing, the meltdowns would have been amazing.
Oh, probably, but yeah. In terms of shipping, I guess I like Anakin and Padme, but granted, I do view it as a bit of a problematic ship, but I feel like it's a ship that's destined to fail. Not that I'm saying it's a healthy ship. I'm thinking it's one that is destined to fail and that it's tragic and all that. That's my stance on that. And,
Lucas described it as Titanic in space.
Yeah. And in terms of EU Legends one, I guess I was always a fan of Revan and Bastilla, but let's see. But yeah, and no questions. Do you think the later chapters are a bit boring in Star Wars?
Which later chapters?
I assume he's referring to the sequel trilogy films.
Yeah.
Then I would say for now they're not really what I was hoping for, but yeah. Anyway, I'm just about to. Oh, okay, that's just my washing machine, but I'm ignoring that. But yeah, but Joe, let's see, Star Wars, let me just find it. Star Wars Legends card. Let's see, Joe, no, I've got it somewhere. Joe, but let's see, throughout the years, George Lucas had some ideas for a sequel trilogy. One, I think, probably made possibly around the Force Awakens time, so even during the prequel time, was apparently Darth Maul was going to come back to the sequel trilogy era and lead the underworld crime and Imperial remnants against Luke Skywalker's new Jedi Order and Leia's sort of New Republic, where I think
I think he did tell Harrison Ford that Han was always going to die in Episode 7, and that's why Harrison Ford was like, "All right, I'll come back then."
Yeah, because he wanted the character to die because he found Han Solo to be not that interesting a character compared to Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just kind of funny considering they're basically the same character.
Yeah, I know, but I guess it's he just didn't feel it that way. But yeah, George Lucas apparently at some point had the idea of Maul and all that stuff, new versus the new Jedi Order and the New Republic. Leia might have become the chosen one at the end. I don't know. These might have been some ideas. I mean, granted, Maul was brought back into Clone Wars, and who knows? It could be possible that George was still trying to do this idea by the time of the before he sold Disney and all that stuff. But of course, as we all got an idea on basically December the 30th, not December, October 30th, 2012, George and Lucas and Bob Iger announced that he was selling Star Wars to Disney. And this basically shocked and blew up the internet.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, hold on. I forgot to share the screen, share this tab instead. But yeah, this now infamous image, I think, which you might have mentioned in one of your latest videos. But yeah.
No, Lucas looks like he feels like he sold his soul.
Yeah. Well, granted, he did have the controversial comments of selling to white slavers down the line, which I think he sort of regretted that one.
Thing we should talk about here is that Lucas did lay out something for the sequel trilogy, and Disney threw it out.
Oh yeah, I'm going to get to that in a bit, but yeah. But anyway, everyone was shocked. No one saw this coming. Apparently, George did tell the original trilogy cast that there's going to be a sequel trilogy, but he did not tell them that Disney was behind it. I mean, let's see. Lucas beforehand had stepped down and announced that Kathleen Kennedy was going to take over as president of Lucasfilm, but no one knew about the whole Disney purchase of Star Wars. Apparently, Bob Iger and him had been talking about it for a year, and granted, there was the one bit of Disney saying they're liking what George was talking about with Star Wars lately, which people thought, wait, is he talking about the prequel trilogy? But no, it seems these were ideas for a sequel, and then of course no one knew, which is shocking because from my understanding, I remember Movie Bob saying that the FBI director at the time couldn't hide where the location of his wife was. But Disney was able to hide this deal. No one saw this coming. And of course, you got all kinds of reactions. Some saying, "Oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. Oh my God, this is great." Let's see. But yeah, a lot of So yeah, you had all kinds of reactions. Many of the reactions that from some that were thought, you know what? It's out of George Lucas's hands. He was terrible with the prequels. This is good to have Star Wars great again or something. That was the sort of mindset you had.
Well, then. I don't know. I was kind of like, I don't know about this one way or the other. That was my attitude.
But yeah, I was actually excited before coming down and thinking, wait, they're not going to be like original trilogy nostalgia fest, are they? But
we'll get to more like that. They're actually the sequels.
But yeah, we'll get to that. But like you said, Disney's Bob Iger sort of George Lucas offered some ideas, and Disney, and particularly this man here, Bob Iger, who's often regarded as the reason for Disney's modern success after I think a bad period in the 2000s, buying Pixar, Marvel, and of course Star Wars, and of course later Fox. The Fox studio. I'm not sure. He could have. I think it was just the entertainment, not the actual news studio. Which I'm pretty certain if you and I bought that, we'd burn it to the ground. but yeah. So basically, George was got some ideas. Bob Iger, said they were going to do them, but he never specifically said we're not obligated. But I think the way it was implied that they were going to do the ideas, and George was not happy about it.
Yeah.
He could not even hide it as something that Bob Iger complained about. But I suppose you can't really blame George Lucas for like Etsy being upset that you didn't use his ideas. So yeah. Basically, the sequel trilogy was announced, and everyone was wondering like who was going to direct it, who was going to write it. Granted, that one seemed like a first thing at first, where this guy here, Michael Arnett, who I think was the writer for like Toy Story 3, if you will.
Yeah.
He was chosen, and it seems like he was working on the Lucas drafts before eventually they skipped it, and of course they brought back Lawrence Kasdan, the one of the two writers for like The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and then I think also Raiders of the Lost Ark. So arguably Disney playing, the safeguard, if you will.
Yeah.
And eventually the director for The Force Awakens was announced as this man, J.J. Abrams, which...
He already done the Star Trek reboot.
Yeah, and I think he originally wanted to do Star Wars, but wasn't allowed to do so at the time. So he figured, do it with Star Trek.
Yeah, and let's just say this. Star Trek Into Darkness is probably one of the worst things I have ever seen.
Ouch. Ouch. Yeah. To be fair, I have actually seen people have similar reactions, but...
Well, because it's basically the same thing as Rise of Skywalker. It's just, here's a thing you remember. Here's a story you loved as a kid. Let's do it. Let's do it again, but make it way worse.
Yes. Some people were not happy that they brought back Khan for that one, but yeah.
Well, no, not even that. It's like, he just like, at the end, they basically just ate Wrath of Khan, and it was like, oh my god, this is insulting.
Okay. Paul Willis is asking what's her first anime. If I had to say, probably either Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh!
That might have been Samurai Pizza Cats for me, honestly.
Okay. Fair enough, but yeah. So basically, J.J. Abrams was announced. Something like, he's an OT fanboy. He gets Star Wars and all that. Some were like, he's going to do a lot of lens flares, because that was Abrams was criticized a lot with Star Trek, besides, I guess, maybe some sort of nostalgia thing. But yeah.
Well, I think it's always like, once, I think my biggest issue was like, it was like, when you have fanboys writing scripts, it's often not a good thing.
Yeah, and to be honest, let's see, I got less enthusiastic as time went on, as I remember at the time Simon Pegg, was a cast announced and putting some input, and question favorite sci-fi, well, Star Wars, obviously. But yeah, for you, Greg, I assume maybe Transformers.
What? Oh yeah, I guess Transformers. I guess that counts as sci-fi.
But yeah. So when and Simon Pegg at the time was probably one of the most famous prequel bashing celebrities at the time. So it's like, okay. And I remember when this film was marketed at the time, it was you got all the cast. You got, of course, the original ones back, and then all the new characters. But I remember at the time they would often go about real sets, real effects, and for me, this was like jabs at this fact that many people complained that the prequel trilogy used too much CGI. Didn't use model sets, even though you would actually find out there was a lot more model sets used as time went on. Let's see, for those films. Heck, even more than some of the latest blockbusters like Avengers. So, but basically the marketing I remember for The Force Awakens leading up was basically going back to the original trilogy and all that stuff. But yeah, now of course there were all kinds of other sort of reactions that people thought might have been the sequel trilogy, because before the sequel trilogy was announced, there was definitely a set of let's see, let me just find it. There's definitely a set of books that arguably revived Star Wars interest in the 90s. The famous Thrawn trilogy, which started the expanded universe, or at least made it a more big thing. Now
Well,
later
I
Dark
think it really, I
Legends.
think it, the expanded universe, I guess, technically started with that novel in the 70s, but
Yeah, that was officially when it started, but arguably the Thrawn trilogy is what allowed it to sort of preserve and continue and even do stuff post Return of the Jedi, because it never did that before. It was always
well, yeah,
between movies.
well, if I remember, Lucas was always saying, "Yeah, you can do whatever you want after Return of the Jedi, but you can't touch how Anakin became Darth Vader. That's for me to tell."
Yeah, because he was set on doing the prequel trilogy, but sequel trilogy not so much. But yeah, some people thought this was going to be the case, but of course, big problem. The characters had become, too young. So as a result, Disney, in order to do their own thing, declared that all these expanded universe legends stories, Dark Empire, Star Wars Legacy, New Jedi Order, Dawn of the Jedi, Knights of the Old Republic, all those sort of things that were like popular at the time, they declared that it was no longer canon.
Well, here's the thing: it's arguably never was truly canon because I remember when Lucas was like, he said there was like tiers to things, like what was canon and what was
Yeah.
like the G tier, which was the 6 movies done by Lucas, was like the top canon, and everything else was like a different canon or something.
Yeah, G canon, basically the movies he did, they're the main canon. And then below was T canon, which is television canon, which stuff that TV shows. The Clone Wars counted, but it also was something done by George Lucas, so that could also have the G canon.
Yeah.
Then there was like the E canon, the expanded universe I think canon. And I think
I forget what the video games were.
Yeah, and I think there was also the L canon for like legends, like non-canon Star Wars stories at the time. And if the show came out, Star Wars Detours would have been its own sort of canon because it was a parody show. And while it had George Lucas involved in, it was, it was like shelved because Kathleen Kennedy didn't want a parody Star Wars show coming out when they're trying to promote these new movies and all that stuff. So yeah. But yeah.
I kind of miss when Star Wars was a little looser on what was canon because, it was easier to excuse continuity hiccups.
Oh yeah, I mean, after all, the Clone Wars sort of ignored whatever Legends canon happened at the time. But yeah,
because I think if anything, that was the case. I think there was word that if something from like a TV show or whatever like contradicted something that was said in the movies, then the movies outweighed that.
Yeah, basically, but yeah, it was like George Lucas's things and whatever licensed fanfic was done, which to be fair, that would be with all the Star Wars stuff, regardless of whether it was good or not, because there was plenty of good stuff, but there's also plenty of bad stuff, which I think sometimes people forget now with like the modern day Star Wars, with how some people are unsatisfied. Let's see, because there are plenty of EU legend stories that were controversial or disliked for its time, not just like the Disney ones. Let's see, but I think but yeah, so Disney like scrap all that. We'll do our own thing. We'll have all the books, comics, and movies may be coming to canon. It'll be popular. So yeah, let's see. Granted, there was also some other casualties. Like I said, Detours was shelved. The 3D releases of like the 6 Star Wars movies was stopped after the Phantom Menace had its own 3D release. But let's see. And the Star Wars Clone Wars television show at the time was cancelled because it was like a part of Cartoon Network. Granted, we got one more season on Netflix, and then there was like a few books and comics for some storylines, which I'm still kind of salty they never got proper animated adaptation. And then years down the line, Clone Wars came back on Disney Plus as one of the things that they could do to start that. So eventually that story was concluded, but let's see, it was a bit of a hard pill for many fans my generation to swallow, because besides the prequels, we grew up with the Clone Wars, so that arguably helped solidify the era of the prequels for many fans my generation, if you will. But like I said, Disney was hyping up with production of like The Force Awakens, you had like the cast. Let's see, you saw members of the cast announced them. You got the teaser. There was some, I guess, at the time, minor controversy. The fact that there was a black stormtrooper with John Boyega.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah, but let's see. I don't think it was at the time. You'd see the culture war thing overblew the top, but yeah. Now, granted, there would be some later controversy in that. I think when let's see, you had like the China when the marketing the film to China, they've sort of removed Finn from the poster because apparently I think let's see, Chinese audiences are not fond apparently of black characters or something. I think that was the controversy at the time. But yeah, but I'm not going to go into like that kind of like topic, to be honest. Let's see. I'll just quickly show what the poster sort of yeah, you can see the poster here and all that stuff. So
yeah, China is China.
yeah, we're not going to go in too much into that, but yeah, basically you had the cast announced. Let's see, the original cast coming back. Let's see, you had all that marketing. I didn't really like the whole real sets, real effects kind of thing because I felt like, okay, feels like it's going to be an anti-prequel movie. As a result, I didn't really see the Star Wars movie in its premiere, which arguably that would be something I would do see whenever I got the chance, and arguably I did with all the other Star Wars movies. But at the time, I wasn't feeling the hype. I may have gotten. Granted, I tried to avoid spoilers, though. I did get an idea of like, let's see, Kylo Ren's relations of the character because you had like Kylo Ren, that cross star lightsaber. That was arguably, let's see, one of the things that was. That was one of the things that got people interested because it's like, is this going to be the new lightsaber gimmick across all three films? But arguably, it was the only new lightsaber design they did. But
yeah, but it was. I think what the sequel trilogy did was like it was basically J.J. Abrams' little mystery boxes on full display.
Oh yeah, which we'll get to that in a bit. But yeah. The film was basically building up this like there's an awakening mystery. You're wondering like who's this character, what role they're playing. Eventually, the film came out. Apparently, we learned that from the opening crawl that Luke Skywalker's missing. This organization called the Force Order that to replace the Empire is trying to spread across the galaxy, trying to find him and all that stuff. The New Republic isn't really doing anything against the First Order. And let's see, Leia's formed a group called the Resistance to oppose them. A pilot is trying to find the map to Luke Skywalker, which we see that he has apparently found the key piece. And the first line in the line is arguably now one that's a bit infamous, where this old guy is saying this will begin to make things right, which many people feel like that was a jab at the prequel trilogy of films.
Yeah, well, and in many ways they made it worse than ever possible.
Yeah. So, yeah, you got like the Empire, the First Order attacking, led by Kylo Ren. Let's see, among them is like see this the Silver Crumbs stormtrooper called Captain.
I don't think we need to summarize the whole movie.
But yeah, basically you had a stormtrooper that defected from the Empire, helping this pilot Finn, who seemingly died in a crash. Meanwhile, they meet Finn, who the stormtrooper defects is then called Finn by the pilot. He left his droid behind who met the scavenger called Rey. Finn and they met.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, Poe was supposed to stay dead, and it kind of shows because they really didn't have any plans for him.
Yeah, to be honest, it didn't really. Yeah, he was supposed to die, maybe. But apparently the actor had already played characters that died a few times before, so we changed it. But Finn and Rey met Han Solo and Chewie, who had apparently gone back to smuggling. After a few bits of adventures, they head to this planet where this elderly alien lady called Mas Kanata, who apparently lived for 1,000 years, knew about all the Jedi, Sith, and Force stuff. had Luke's lightsaber. Rey touches his, get a vision, during which seeing what happened was Han had explained earlier that Luke had a student that sort of betrayed him, wiped out all his other ones, and he went into exile. The First Order has a as a base called Starkiller Base, and it's basically a much larger planet Death Star. Destroys 5 planets that were part of the New Republic's main branch, and apparently it's military. First Order kidnaps Rey. Resistance arrive. Han and Rey reunite, where we see that they had a bit of a falling out. 3PO has a red arm for some reason. R2 is not been moving since Luke's disappeared. Eventually, Finn volunteers to take Han to destroy the generator for the Starkiller base, while he just wants to rescue Rey because he was actually just more of a janitor. You do get a funny line with Han saying, "That's not how the Force works," but sorry, go on.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Harrison Ford actually feels like he put an effort into this performance.
Oh yeah, arguably he was the highlight of this. Let's see.
Yeah, because here's the thing with Harrison Ford, you can tell when he's trying to give a very good performance and when he just does not give a shit.
Oh yeah, that is true. But yeah, he put quite a good role. Rey starts to unlock her Force powers. Let's see, as Kylo Ren is revealed to be Ben Solo, Han and Leia's kid, who's working with this General Hux, who's basically a loudmouth Tarkin, if you will, and who's working for this mysterious figure called Snoke, who looks a bit alien, but apparently but you only see him as a giant hologram in the film, who apparently is his dark side master. Now, granted, he's not really called Kylo Ren's not really called a Sith. He's called a Knight of Ren, if you will.
Yeah.
So we'll get more into that a bit later. But let's see. Rey escapes, reunites with Finn and Han as Poe's leading X-wings to attack the Starkiller base. They try to set some bombs. Han meets his son. Han tries to turn to the light, but Kylo Ren kills him. Chewie shoots Kylo Ren. Then Finn and Rey fight him later. Finn gets wounded. Rey is able to use the Force to get the Skywalker lightsaber, strike down Kylo Ren, but not kill him as the planet erupts, as Poe destroys the Starkiller base. Hux retreats, but ordered to bring Kylo Ren so Snoke can finish his training. And then R2 wakes up and then has the rest of Luke Skywalker's map, and Rey, leaving Finn and Poe behind. It takes Chewie and R2 along to meet Luke Skywalker, which is apparently on the planet of the first Jedi Temple, if you will. And then she meets up with him, trying to give him his former father's lightsaber, ending the movie on a cliffhanger. So that's basically the plot, which I arguably skimmed it a bit more than I would normally do. But yeah, that was the film. And if something sounds familiar, yeah, this movie's main criticism, well, I will say at the time, the film was, for the most part, generally liked by audiences, but the one nagging criticism, which for me was a very thing I did not want to happen, was the fact that this movie felt too much of a remake of A New Hope.
Yeah. Well, because as I pointed out with Into Darkness, J.J. Abrams just knows how to do one thing: retell something that was already told.
Yeah, and frankly, I didn't really want that for Star Wars. Heck, George Lucas didn't even want that for Star Wars.
I think George Lucas has he's always said about the sequels, there's nothing new.
Yeah, he wanted new ships, new designs, new planets. Let's see, maybe there would have been some, planets we might have returned to in the sequels just for, story's sake. Probably Coruscant and maybe Tatooine, just because Coruscant is the capital of the galaxy, and Tatooine because of the Skywalker connections. But yeah, he was not happy. Now, granted, there's some loose concepts from my understanding that the sequel trilogy sort of did from George Lucas, which let me just let's see. Here we go. Let's see, because I think apparently there was going to be a female lead called Kira or something, but that was scrapped for Rey and all that stuff. I think as Han and Leia were supposed to have their son fall to the dark side. That was one thing.
Yeah, that actually did happen in the Legends continuity, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, and well, technically the grandson in the legend, the son was Han and Leia's son in the legends was Jason Solo, who had a twin sister, as well as a younger brother who was called Anakin Solo, and Ben was the name used for like Luke's kid, Ben Skywalker, who we had the marriage.
Lucas was like, I don't see Luke getting married. He was not a fan of that, apparently.
Yeah, which.
Although here's the thing, I think if anything, it makes sense Luke would undo that because he was trying to build a better Jedi Order, and then in the Mandalorian, I know Book of Boba Fett, we see, oh no, he didn't fix that at all.
Yeah, which seems like let's see, Disney went more of that route. Now, granted, I felt like there was going to be at least there's probably it seemed to imply to be at least a few that let's see George was at least expecting maybe two grandchildren for the Sky for Anakin because there's one question thing he said to J.J. Abrams. Let's see, it's more of a video thing because it's like what happened to Darth Vader's grandchildren? So it seemed to imply that there would at least been two grandchildren for Darth Vader. So
apparently, I remember a lot of people were wondering if Rey and Kylo Ren were related in some way.
Oh yeah, we'll get more to that in a bit, but yeah. So that was some of the ideas he had. Now, granted, in a sort of interview he had with, I believe James Cameron, he did talk about more exploring like the micro spiritual side of the Star Wars universe, maybe doing the wills, which he's always tried to do, I guess, in Star Wars. Granted, he seems to think that this idea would have been hated, but he felt that the story would have been complete. So I don't know. It could have been that the sequel was a mix of all these ideas of, let's see, Darth Maul and Darth Talon, which let's see that Red Twi'lek, let's see Sith Lord in the Legends comic. Which, to be fair, George Lucas always seems to be a bit of a have a thing for Twi'lek since he made Aayla Secura a Legends Jedi Knight canon in the prequel films because they were in the prequel comics at the time. So, but yeah, one of Talon, I think. But yeah, stuff like that. But yeah, yeah, he was not happy with like them just being a sort of retro movie. He doesn't like that.
Yeah. Well, no, apparently Lucas said Disney wanted to do like a retro movie and he wasn't down for that.
Yeah, now on one hand, I can see why Disney would want to play it safe given the fact it was a new investment, but I do think in the short term it was successful. I mean, the film made like $2 billion at the box office.
I remember Lucas was like Lucas, I think, told Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and Carrie Fisher that, if you don't want to come back, I can just write your characters out.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mark Hamill was the one who was like, I don't know if we should do this, George. Yeah, Mark Hamill was the holdout. He was like, I don't know if this is a good idea, George.
Yeah, but I suppose that's it. You can't necessarily blame him given what Disney eventually did, but...
Yeah, Mark Hamill was the guy who was like, I don't know if we should make these movies or something like that. He was like, I don't know if this is a good idea, George.
But yeah. So he wasn't, he wasn't happy. They did the retro movie, which arguably in the short term, it sort of paid off, but in the long term, it caused a bit of problems. And I think we can now probably discuss some of the more things that done it. For example, J.J. Abrams' mystery box.
Oh yeah, he does that. That's what he likes to do because it's like, who were Rey's parents? I don't know. You might find out.
Yeah, because J.J. Abrams is known to for him, it's like the mystery is always more engaging than the actual answers, which he did that for the first season of Lost. He did that with the third Mission Impossible film. Though, granted, the final Mission Impossible film eventually connected that with everything else and all that stuff. So
yeah,
let's see. That eventually played a long-term thing, but I think that more just worked out in Mission Impossible's favor, really. But rather than just that was all planned. And I'm not. Did he do it for Star Trek?
I
I don't know, honestly. I don't remember. I think it was just Star Trek. They were just making timeline changes.
Yeah, and I think there was another
But
film.
in fairness, they were saying, it's not affecting the Prime Star Trek universe. This is an alternate timeline.
Yeah, which arguably probably was the smart decision to do at the time, but yeah, but yeah, I think there's also was another film Cloverfield, but I've never seen that film, but yeah, JJ the Mystery Box, which arguably okay for a trilogy, not a new trilogy with these new characters, not necessarily a bad idea, but long term, maybe not having the answers for these characters made a mess, especially with how Disney sort of played it with these multiple other directors, and then before bringing JJ.
Well, yeah, I think it's just a case of Colin Trevorrow was supposed to direct episode 9, but they removed him for some reason.
Yeah, and honestly, from what we know of his ideas for like episode 9 would have more fit in with what was set up with the last two films than whatever J.J. Abrams did with Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, I forget why he was fired. I don't remember.
I know, disagreements or something. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's because of the latest Jurassic World movie at the time would end up being badly received or something. But yeah, I don't know, stuff like that. But yeah. So he did all these mysteries with no answers, and granted, it feels like okay, you gotta have some ideas because especially with like I'd say the two biggest ones would have been Rey and Snoke, because Rey, you tease this sort of like this greater destiny. Is she like a Skywalker? Is she a Kenobi? Is she something else?
Yeah, and Snoke, it was like, well, who is Snoke? It's like he's basically the new Palpatine, but where did he come from? And then, who is he? And then Rian Johnson's answer was, who cares? He's dead now.
Yeah, which, okay, yes, arguably he's a less interesting version of, carbon copy of Palpatine at the very least, but given the fact that we had 6 films that established the Galactic Empire, Palpatine, and even the Sith, and the fact that they should be wiped out, it's like, who is this new guy? And the most popular answer at the time, especially given the theme that John Williams did for like Snoke, is that is this perhaps Darth Plagueis?
Yeah,
because okay, this was Palpatine's mentor, as we know from Star Wars lore, even though it was only vaguely hinted in Revenge of the Sith. We know from other lore, no, he was the actual full-blown master of Palpatine. So it's like, has he come back and now corrupting the grandson of Vader to continue the sort of dark legacy? But of course, Rian Johnson didn't really care, and that arguably affects this film. Another, of course, like Rey's lineage, which arguably her being not related to the Skywalkers, I think could work.
Yeah.
But the way they teased it did not.
Well, the thing is, like, at the end of the film, when she meets Luke looks like he's seen a ghost when he sees her. He's like, the way Luke looks at her, it's like it implies he knows her or something.
Yeah, is it like, let's see, does he look like, is it like perhaps she's the, let's see, because for all we know, Rey could actually be his daughter, and maybe daughter he never, thought he lost or something.
Well, that's the thing. I think if she had to be related to anyone, she should have just been Luke's daughter.
Yeah, because it's like, because it's like you probably wanted like a good Skywalker and a bad Skywalker, like the two sides of Anakin Skywalker's legacy clashing against each other. Let's see, one representing the good, the other representing the evil, if you will.
Yeah.
And that probably would have been better. It's like, what would the Skywalker legacy be? Granted, the only other thing I can think of, if you're going to make Rey a sort of nobody, before we go that, I think I'll go back more of the Rey being Luke's daughter. If anything, you could have made it so that Rey's mother looks a lot like her. Luke, and you could have argued if Kylo Ren or Ben Solo betrayed Luke and killed all the other Jedi, Let's see. You could have had it that his wife died too, and that broke him, and that sort of like.
Well, yeah, Mara Jade. I think she did die in the Legends timeline. If I
Oh yeah, killed by Jason Solo. So it could have arguably worked. And not necessarily have to make it Mara Jade, but you could still, keep that in sort of spiritual form in a sense. But turns out, let's see, the daughter at least survived and all that stuff and was taken to the whatever. But yeah, you could have done that. But if you weren't going to do that, the only thing I could think of is instead of having like Poe Dameron become one of the new main three original thing, instead, and maybe this might be change Han Solo to perhaps be a part of the Resistance or New Republic thing or whatever. Perhaps with him is perhaps Luke's actual kid. But one interesting twist is that instead of being strong in the Force, he has no connection to the Force whatsoever. Sort of like what the Old Republic did with this one character called Farron Shan, who was descendant from like Revan Ambassador and the son of like the Grand Master at the time, Satele Shan, but he could not use the Force. So you could have done something like that, and you've got like one Skywalker is fallen to the dark side and not taking up the Jedi legacy, and another Skywalker that can't and has to do his own legacy. Heck, maybe even make him the pilot that destroys Starkiller Base. But and Rey, this nobody, is the one that spiritually continues the Jedi legacy for the Skywalkers. Maybe even make him like the non-Force user Skywalker's love interest if you wanted to, or do something like that. Because frankly, long-term Poe just wasn't used well. Or they didn't know what to do
he
with
was
him.
also wasted because he had a lot of potential as a character, but they did nothing with it.
Yeah, it's also the same with Finn, which arguably,
That's what I said.
Stormtrooper. You could have done that with Finn as well, I guess. But
I think it's like he was clearly set up as the lead, and then it's like, oh no, the lead's actually Rey, and it was kind of like, wow, they kind of did Finn dirty.
Yeah, I mean, granted, they tried to tease that he was going to be like he was Force sensitive in Rise of Skywalker, but in this film, well, you see him with the lightsaber in the teasers. You thought, is he going to be a Jedi? Heck, if Finn turned about to be like, say, Luke's, I don't know, son, I could maybe buy it. I mean, in real life, George Lucas did marry, I think, an African American woman in his late years. And that was one of the reasons why he didn't want to do the sequel trilogy, because they're having a child. So this could be like a tie into since Luke Skywalker being like that with George Lucas and all that. I know,
Luke is very similar to Lucas, so
I don't know. It could have been like a sort of way of tying into real life. I mean, would there be controversy with like a Black Skywalker? Probably. I mean, sadly, the last couple of years has not been kind to diverse casting, to be fair. Unfortunately. But at least that would have been something. But but even if they didn't do that, okay, a stormtrooper that defects. Interesting, though. Granted, I do feel like they like the idea of the concept rather than like what that means for a character. Given the fact that you do see him fight a bunch of other stormtroopers, and doesn't seem to affect him much. But yeah. So, and speaking of stormtroopers, the most disappointing aspect, I say, was Captain Phasma.
Yeah.
She's probably the worst case of what I call of the Boba Fett effect, of like this cool looking character that ultimately does nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, at least with Boba Fett, he helped track down the Millennium Falcon Empire Strikes Back, and at least even if he did get a bit of a comedic death in Return of the Jedi, though he's brought back, of course, and even Darth Maul, some could accuse this, but at least Darth Maul had a lightsaber fight against Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon and even killed Qui-Gon Jinn. So at least those two characters had more of a, even if they were sort of like had this like cool looking but rarely did stuff, at least they had some impact in the saga. Phasma has none. Which I think some people have talked about. You know what? You could have done heard with the whole traitor stormtrooper fight thing with Finn early in the film. At least that would have been something. But yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah, apparently Daniel Craig was apparently the stormtrooper that Rey mind forced. So
Yeah, that's kind of funny. He was still doing Bond at the time.
Yeah. Let's see. So yeah, that was kind of cool. But yeah. But
that scene did get a laugh out of me when Kylo Ren starts to destroy the monitors or whatever, and like the stormtrooper's like, yeah, let's not go in there.
Arguably, Kylo Ren, I do kind of see him as like a sort of grandson to like Anakin Skywalker. Arguably, one of the highlights was that they did a Darth Vader wannabe, but they stuck with that. It's like he's trying to be Darth Vader, but he's not Darth Vader, and arguably he doesn't fully understand his own grandfather because he did return to the light, if you will.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like I find that weird because like, shouldn't he know that or something? He should probably know that.
I do know in the novels, Snoke tells Kylo Ren that the one flaw Darth Vader had was the love for his son Luke and all that. So it seems like in his own twisted mind, he thinks that his grandfather just had this one flaw that went wrong, and he would have probably maybe had his destiny if it was not for that or something. But probably something that should have been mentioned in the film. But this is arguably stuff that's problem with this sequel trilogy movie. Long time you think about it. The lack of world building, I'd say. Let's see. It's like focusing so much of trying to redo sort of A New Hope and capture the magic of the original trilogy. That it leaves some, not really answers some questions that probably need to address. Because, the First Order seems like a much stronger empire than the Galactic Empire. I mean, they literally Starkiller Base is literally a bigger Death Star.
Yep.
Let's see, and one that can destroy 5 planets. Now, granted, it's later. Let's see, which I'm going to go to that a bit. But apparently, the Starkiller Base, as we later learn with later Disney lore, particularly like Jedi's Fallen Order, we learn that Starkiller Base is actually the planet Ilum, which was the planet where Jedi got their lightsaber crystals from to make the kyber crystals. Which, now granted, it's not the only planet that does this, but it's often regarded as the main one. I'm just like thinking, that doesn't seem like the smartest thing to do long term, because if you want to make more Jedi and Star Wars movies, you probably might want to have a planet where you get like where most of those crystals will go to. So that's just more of a minor issue I have with that. But the biggest issue is was like let's see, the First Order and the New Republic, because it feels like the First Order feels, like I said, it feels like a much stronger empire, and it feels like they should not be this. They should not be this strong. They should arguably be like, okay, I get not wanting to do an Imperial remnant, but I feel like, okay, I'm not against the idea of them being, let's see, secretly building something behind the scenes, but the moment they should have lost their main weapon, they should not be the dominant power of the galaxy. Let's see, this should have been like the New Republic getting fully in, but it seems like J.J. Abrams, Disney, and all that stuff didn't really want to go explore the politics of the New Republic, because they think, I think at the mindset at the time, politics bad in Star Wars, because the prequels did a fair bit of politics, I think sometimes exaggerated. Let's see, but yeah. But instead, so they decided to just make the Rebels versus Empire again, but this time called Resistance versus First Order, and decided to just have the New Republic destroyed, which arguably I'm not a fan of. I wanted to see how this New Republic was different from the Old Republic. Did it learn from the mistakes of the New Republic? Had it of the Old Republic, what is different? What have they done to try and, make it better? Heck, I even was hoping that maybe Leia would become, Supreme Chancellor or something, which I thought would be a more fitting thing than General Leia Organa. So yeah, I would have liked that. And one thing I didn't really like is the fact that Luke's Jedi Order got, wiped out.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was happy about that because it was like that's just that's J.J. Abrams the whole. I just have to reset everything to how it once was.
And it's like, yeah, because let's see, because like this basically shows that Luke Skywalker failed. Now, I'm not saying you should make him Legends Luke of like, let's see, where he's like in his like this all powerful Force user that's managed to restore the Jedi to at least a few hundred to 1,000 by the time there. But at the very least, I think people were hoping that we would see Luke more, stronger in the Force, has made some progress. I mean, and maybe do some things different than what the old Jedi Order did.
That was the big problem people have with the sequels. They basically made it look like nothing in the original trilogy mattered.
Yeah, and arguably it was sort of there in this first film. I mean, but people at the time sort of ignored it, but it became more of an issue with each film passing at the time.
Yeah, I think it got to the point where one of the Lucasfilm employees, I forget who it was, had to say, "Look, we didn't do that on purpose."
Yeah, so it's like, but yeah, no, it wasn't maybe not the intention, but this arguably became the result, which for many people, given how Star Wars is a bit more of a hope and optimistic sort of universe down the line, long term.
Yeah,
it's rubbed the people the wrong way, especially Luke Skywalker. I mean, okay, Han, you could argue, I could maybe see him go back to smuggling, even though I think most people probably would like if he stayed besides Leia.
Yeah.
And arguably, if I was to rewrite The Force Awakens, I'd probably have him being more of like one of Leia's like top officers in either New Republic or the Resistance. Like I said, maybe working with that non-Force user Skywalker to try and retrieve the map to Luke and all that stuff. Because I do think if you did because I do think that idea could have been interesting because it's like everyone expects him to live up to the Skywalker legacy, but he can't because he can't use the Force. So he finds his own path, and maybe that'd be like piloting or something. But yeah, that would have been fun. But yeah, the New Republic, nothing was talked because I guess Star Wars at the time, politics bad. And also the New Jedi Order, because like we don't want to get all those Jedi from like the same prequel era, I guess. But it's like I think people, regardless of how they felt about those films, they wanted to see what the accomplishments Han and Leia did and Luke did to change the Republic and sort of like the Jedi Order, because it could be like this new growing Republic that's still trying to set its foot in the galaxy against this remnants of an empire that's starting to gain power again. That could have made for a very fair, balanced conflict, as well as like this Jedi Order trying to struggle against this new dark side organization, which is unfortunately has now one of the legacies of Darth Vader with it, with like this dark side grandson.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think I would have preferred that kind of movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is arguably a thing. Though, granted, like I said, I did like, I guess, the idea of Finn, the idea of Kylo Ren. Heck, I even like the CGI alien tentacle monster thing, which arguably not the most original creature, but for me, it's like, see, there is CGI in this movie, so don't go like practical effects. But that's just more of my just gripe with Star Wars fans being obsessed with practical effects over CGI all times. At least with original trilogy fans.
Yeah.
Like, modern movies are going to use CGI. You don't have to lose your marbles whenever they're used in Star Wars. But yeah, arguably. But like I said, this movie at the time got raving reviews from critics and fans. Now, but as time went on with these sequel trilogy films, let's see, this movie sort of soured with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Now, granted, there were probably a bunch of kids that, at the time of when this film was coming out, probably do like this film. Maybe they still like this film. I'm not sure. I mean, at the moment, we haven't really seen a sort of like prequel trilogy fan effect where kids who grew up with the prequel trilogy eventually had their voices heard. Ironically enough, starting around the time when this movie was coming out and then a few years afterwards. Now, arguably, that hasn't really happened, I guess, with the kids for The Force Awakens or even, I guess, the other two films yet, but we'll have to wait and see. But I do think one of the things that against The Force Awakens and the sequel trilogy as a whole is that the prequels were like an entirely new original era of Star Wars. They weren't trying to recapture the magic of like the first trilogy, if you will. They're trying to tell its own thing. And also around surrounding at the time was like all these sort of like comics, games, and TV shows that expanded on this world, if you will. So that era was interesting. But for the sequel trilogy, particularly The Force Awakens, let's see. There wasn't really much. There wasn't necessarily much world building in terms of marketing and thing. You got a bunch of comics, you got a bunch of comics and stuff, and a bunch of novels, but nothing felt vague. And even later films sort of contradicted these comics and novels.
Yeah, but I guess that's something we can talk about another time.
Yeah, but yeah, I'll go a bit more on that in a bit. But and the only game that was coming out at the time was Star Wars Battlefront, which was mostly an original trilogy game only, and well, that had its own set of controversies with EA and all that.
Yeah. Star Wars video games are in a weird place right now.
Yeah, it's some games are loved, some games are hated.
Yeah,
but yeah.
I do miss the LucasArts days.
Yeah, that was arguably one of the biggest blows when Disney bought closing down LucasArts. And there's like a Darth Maul game coming out, 1313, which was supposed to be a Battlefront, which I think was supposed to be a Boba Fett game. And I think there was also Battlefront 3 or some sort of game that would lead to Battlefront 3. That's what I remember, which rubbed people the wrong way. But yeah, you've had those. You only had like games that came out was, like I said, Battlefront and Lego Force Awakens, which you think they would wait for the entire sequel trilogy for that before doing a Lego game like that.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. I gotta wrap this up soon. I gotta pee really badly.
Okay, that's fair. But yeah, arguably, I would say this: The Force Awakens is a fun film to watch, but when you think about it,
it doesn't hold up.
Yeah.
I think the performances basically carry what was, in hindsight, a very mediocre film.
Yeah, it's arguably a 6 to maybe 7 out of 10 blockbuster movie, but Star Wars movie long term. Not let's see. Now, granted, I guess depending on how you feel about the prequels movie,
I think at the time people were just being like, "Oh, it's such a breath of fresh air compared to the prequels," and then people started to think about it. It was like, "Oh, wait a minute."
Yeah, which arguably, at long term, the prequels have gotten better reputation. Now, granted, those who still dislike the prequels might put The Force Awakens above this movie, but nevertheless, this movie. It has not aged well compared to say like its predecessors.
Yeah,
because Return of the Jedi, the prequel trilogy, particularly at Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith, they all had their naysayers at the time, but over time,
I won't defend Attack of the Clones. I still don't like that one.
Attack of the Clones seems to be the more problematic middle child, and maybe we'll get onto that when we get to its maybe 25th anniversary or something.
Well, that'd be next year. Although that's also the 50th anniversary of the entire franchise. So
yeah, so it seems like So I think the original. So I think you get more of A New Hope rather than Attack of the Clones.
Yeah,
re-release, but they might maybe do Attack of the Clones re-release or something. I mean, they did it with Revenge of the Sith and Phantom Menace. Maybe they'll do it for that, but no, they might just do that with like but they might more do that when they release the Phantom Menace and sequel and Revenge of the Sith. But yeah, but like I said, a bunch of films that mixed reaction at the times. It's got to become more positive down the line, while Force Awakens is a film that got positive but has become more mixed or even negative down the line, really.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, it's got its fans still, but it's now seen a film that, while the best in the sequel trilogy, a film that down the line was like, did not live up, the sequel trilogy did not live up to its potential. So, yeah, I think that's basically all we have to say, unless there's anything else you want to say quickly.
Yeah. Just well, whatever the future holds, we'll just have to wait and see now.
Yeah, I mean, we do got 2 new movies coming out. One this year.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone actually cares about that movie because I've never seen anyone talk about it.
Well, I'm actually kind of excited. I'm hoping it does well, but no, we'll have to wait and see in that regard. But
Yeah.
let's see. But yeah, but let's see. But it might be the film that comes after that gets people more talking. But yeah, but of course we have to wait and see. Let's see, because Star Wars is now under new management technically, so we'll have to wait and see what they approve or not. But that's a discussion for another day. But which let's see. I know you're not really up for doing it anytime soon, but would you be up for it in, say, like a month or something? Or
Possibly. I'll let you know I'll see what I'm doing then.
okay, but yeah. So yeah, we've basically summed up The Force Awakens, a film that's popular and aged poorly as time went on, but
yeah.
Let's see. And that's
my cat is starting to really smother me, so he's
probably time for us to head off. So for those who end up listening, particularly like this, by Paulus 11122, thank you for your comments. I hope everyone enjoyed what we had to say, and I'll see you next time when we talk Star Wars. Bye, everyone, and may the Force be with you.
Yep.
And with that, we are done.
Yep.